Broadcasting live from the True Crime Today studios to the world. This is Murder in the Morning with Tony Bruschi and Stacey Cole.
From the Hit Killers Podcast, Murder in the Morning.
Robert Tellis. Oh, Robert Tellis. The former Clark County public administrator accused of murdering investigative journalist Jeff German took the stand once again, where he not only denied the charges against him, but he also suggested a broad conspiracy by law enforcement to frame him. Let's take a listen to some of this testimony that I think is like almost a case study. And I know everybody's like, we should play a fucking drinking game. Every time Tony says narcissism, take a drink. You'd all be fucking fucked up by the end of pretty much every episode.
Yeah, but it fits. If the shoe fits, wear it.
It does. And honestly, that's, I think, the reality in so many of these cases that allows people to go to the nth degree that they do is that. So let's take a listen to some of this testimony of Robert Tellis.
I did not cut up a shoe and hide it under my couch. I did not cut up a hat and put it in an open door of my toolbox.
Okay.
I did not kill Mr. German, so I did not take a bag with my children's basketball and football out of the bin and use it during the commission of a murder. So, again, I didn't kill Mr. German. I am not the kind of person who would stab someone.
The objection was sustained.
Okay. So, I've never beat anybody up. I've never killed anybody. I didn't kill Mr. German.
He claims he doesn't kill Mr. German. You're going to hear that a lot in his testimony when he doesn't know what else to say. I didn't kill Mr. German. The day began with Tellis questioning the evidence presented against him, particularly focusing on a photo of the suspected killer's pants. After a significant delay in court, Tellis compared the jeans taken into evidence with a photo, asserting that the two did not match. His pants do not match the killer's jeans, Tellis argued. As defense attorney Robert Draskovich presented the item in question, Tellis also recounted his distress during a police search of his home, becoming visibly emotional on the stand. As photos of his residence post-search were displayed, he began to sob. Although, please note, as you're listening to this, there were no visible tears.
Oh.
He squinted his eyes really tight and saw and made the... I can't even do it because the mic cuts out that sound. The sniffling sound, and then all of a sudden was like, oh, I can talk normally, because that's what, when you're sobbing, you just normally go back into your normal voice. No red eyes, no puffy anything. Describing the media surrounding his house and the cold conditions he endured in detention. I spent all day cold in a paper suit. Tellis lamented. Let's take a listen to that.
This is it, too?
He's sobbing right now. And he has had his fist stuck by his head the whole time of this trial, which I think is like a comfort thing for him.
This is I-2.
Pretending to wipe his eyes. No tears.
And this is J2.
And notice this testimony is all about his attempted suicide. It's not about German. It's not about anything else. It's all about him. And this is where he gets most emotional, is when it's all about him.
So I found my wife sitting on the floor in our bedroom in the middle of this mess. And so this for me was, you know, the thing that just broke me. I'm sorry. I knew I didn't do this thing, and yet the police claim to have this evidence. They did what they did to me, and I have $1 million life insurance policy. I didn't want my family to have to go through more torture. And so I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought, you know what, if I can avoid the pain that they're going to suffer during this whole circus, then and put some money into their hands to make up for me not being there, then maybe this is the thing to do. But it was, for me, never, I'm not guilty. I didn't kill Mr. Gurman. But as you can see, I attempted suicide.
As you can see, I attempted suicide. As you can see, as I'm sobbing here uncontrollably in the corner, I did this, even though he's not really crying at all. He's the most fidgety fucking person I've ever seen on the stand.
Do you think there's that he's on the spectrum somewhere? He's reminding me of somebody I used to work with.
Me?
No, not you. No. But somebody that I fairly recently worked with that I'm fairly certain they are on the Asperger's spectrum. Just a very fidgety, wouldn't look you in the eye, couldn't look you in the eye. Was very unemotional, unattached, couldn't. I'll never forget. I was sitting at my desk. I just found out my sister-in-law was in stage 4 breast cancer, and I burst into tears. And he came by and said, "Hey, did you get the barter services done today?" And I'm sitting there bawling, just, my sister-in-law is going to die.
Are you okay? What's going on?
Nothing. And I remember Dave, my morning partner, like stood up because we were all like prairie dogs in our cubicles.
Yep.
And he stood up and he goes, "So-and-so," said his name. "Can you see she is upset right now? This can wait."
Yeah.
And for me, it was just, I didn't understand somebody on the spectrum at the time. It was well before people became really educated about it.
Yeah.
And so I thought he was the biggest fucking asshole I'd ever met in my entire life.
Sure.
And once I finally realized, maybe he's somewhere on this spectrum and something is different about him, I became a little more compassionate that he doesn't communicate with people the way other people communicate with each other because he can't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, is this guy somewhere on there? And I'm just curious because he's reminding me a lot of my former boss.
I would say so. I mean, I see that in him, where I've been saying it a lot. His behavior, his reactions to everything seem very learned. They don't seem natural. They exactly like I like it's and people like that. They want to be able to feel those ways, but their brain doesn't allow them to. And in no way making excuses for Robert Tellis by any means. I'm just talking about that sort of a condition, especially Asperger's. I know it's called something else now, but whatever the fuck ever. It is something where it is difficult to grasp, I think, emotion sometimes in other people, and you do have to learn it. But if it's really extreme, it's got to be hard. The way I've been saying it this whole trial, it's like as if he was in a high school drama club and they're doing a mock trial, and the teacher looks at him and he's in the same role he's in right now and goes, "Okay, you're feeling emotion. We're seeing it, but pull it back a little bit because it's a little bit much. Not over the top, but not natural." And I think that's a lot of what he's doing is he's trying to play the role that he's in, that he's been dealt. And he also will not accept that he went down this horrible path and did this horrible thing. And and this is where the narcissism comes in, because you can certainly be a narcissist and have Asperger's. It's one of those things where the two don't work well together either, because if you're in that sort of state of narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder, your prism tells you that people will believe you no matter what. Your story, he thinks he's doing a great job on the stand right now. You can tell by his demeanor, the way he's just kind of laid back, like I said, bouncing around in that fucking chair. He's a pain in the ass to try and keep in frame on camera. And he's at a level of comfort that he shouldn't be for this. And then he bursts into weird fits of confusion that is kind of a learned behavior of what he thinks the jury wants to see, and none of it makes sense. And he will not, and he's being very evasive with the prosecution of any question they ask. He completely just doesn't accept the fact that his DNA was under the fingernails of Gurman. Yeah. I mean, just all these facts that are just there. Just no, I don't accept that. I don't believe that. And that,
again, being an attorney, that's the part that just blows my mind.
I will say this: he was a mail order attorney. He did it all online. It's not that he's not a very experienced attorney, if you will.
Well, and his performance shows that, because a seasoned attorney who's been in a courtroom, who understands that your mannerisms, your displays of expressions, all of it plays a huge component in how the jury is going to see you. A lot of it is acting. You know, you need to dress a certain way. You need to emote a certain way. So he hasn't had that coaching. His team didn't coach him, and he doesn't know to coach himself in that way.
I don't think his attorney wants anything to fucking do with him. I think it was a come to Jesus of like, look, either I'm going to withdraw, or if the judge doesn't grant you the ability here to deliver your testimony the way that you're doing it, which is a very unique way where it's just him being able to sit there and rattle off his fucking story. His attorney doesn't want to be a part of that. So I can only imagine what a nightmare of a client this would be, where he thinks he knows everything and he's so off on everything.
Well, and it's astounding to me that any attorney would allow their client to sit on the stand for 2 days and let themselves dig a deeper hole. This just screams, okay, I've thrown my hands up. You want to do this, go for it.
I mean, he's been objecting to some things, but I just think he knows it's like, there's no fucking point to this. Throughout his testimony, Tellis maintained his innocence in the murder of Jeff Gurman. He empathically denied cutting up a shoe or hat and hiding them in his home, as well as using a bag associated with the children's sports activities in the commission of a crime. I did not kill Mr. Gurman, Tellis declared many times. The former public administrator went further, claiming that the evidence against him was part of a police conspiracy. He suggested that DNA found at the crime scene had been planted, and that Detective Derek Joppy was involved. I know they say it in there, I just can't think of how it's pronounced. Was involved in the framing. Tellis described the alleged conspiracy as an effort to plug holes in the case, asserting that police officers were behind the manipulation of the evidence. Let's take a listen to some of that.
You were here yesterday and you talked for approximately 2 hours. Do you remember that?
Yes, sir.
And then you came here this morning and you talked for another hour or so, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's one thing I didn't hear you mention. The DNA. I'd like to talk about that with you. You're not disputing that your DNA is underneath Mr. Gehrman's fingernails, are you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. But you've heard the testimony. It's there, correct?
I don't know if it was there or at what point it might have gotten there, sir.
Okay. I'm not asking you how it got there. Are you really denying that your DNA is underneath the fingernails?
Without knowing the truth, yes, I am.
Okay. Well, you've heard witnesses testify.
Right.
So the DNA lab's in on it too?
Nope.
I don't know. I don't know at what point. I don't know what point this sample was collected.
Sir, please tell this jury, how in the world does your DNA get underneath Mr. Gehrman's fingernails?
I don't know, because I did not kill Mr. Gurman.
You have no idea how it could have gotten underneath your fingernails, correct?
Under my fingernails?
I'm sorry, under his fingernails, correct?
I don't know that it ever was, sir.
All right. Let's do it another way. You and Mr. Gehrman are not friends, are you?
No.
Okay, you don't hang out with him ever?
Sir, I did not ever hang out with Mr. Gurman when he was alive.
My question is yes. You didn't hang out with him ever, correct?
I did not.
He's never invited you over to his house?
No, sir.
You've never hung out, had drinks at a bar, correct?
No, sir.
There would be really no opportunity for him ever to put his hands on you in any sort of social situation, correct?
Correct, sir.
And yet, these two people who are not friends, your DNA just happens to be underneath his fingernails. Correct?
No, sir.
Okay. You just don't think it was legitimately placed there, correct? Or are you just ignoring the testimony of all of the witnesses that talked about how your DNA was underneath the fingernails?
Again, at some point or another, I believe it was planted because I did not kill Mr. Gurman.
So, and by that logic, if you believe it was planted, you are at least admitting, yes, my DNA is underneath his fingernails, correct? Can you at least agree with me on that?
Whether it came from a sample of the fingernails or a different sample altogether, I don't know. I couldn't tell you, sir.
The answer to my question is yes. You're at least acknowledging my physical DNA is underneath the fingernails.
No, sir.
Okay, great. So you're just going to disregard what all the other DNA witnesses said about this, correct?
And
okay, that's fair. That's fine. Totally fine.
It's a lesson, and this should be literally a case study in narcissism. That right there.
He's really delusional. I think anybody listening to this would go, dude, stop talking, shut up.
He's not delusional. He's just a fucking narcissist. That's not delusion. He believes that people will believe his story, and as long as people believe his story, truth be damned, because what does it matter if people believe him and it works to his advantage? What's wrong with that? That's the way of thinking. That's how 1 + 2 = 8 in their world. Yeah. Because if you convince people and you say it enough, it must be true. They all say it is too. I say it is. It's got to be that. It's why you can't argue with people like this, because it goes absolutely nowhere. During a cross-examination, State Attorney Chris Hammer probed Tellis on several inconsistencies in his statements and actions. Hammer questioned Tellis about the shoes found at his home, the Google Street View images of Gurman's neighborhood discovered on his phone, and his lack of outgoing messages during the time of the murder. Hamner highlighted the similarity between the rims on Tellis's SUV and those on the suspect's vehicle seen near the crime scene, as well as the presence of Tellis's DNA on the fingernails. Let's hear about the car.
Let's look at these windows. Bottom right-hand corner, sir. The front windows are not tinted, are they?
No, sir.
But the back ones are, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's cue over to your car. Your front windows are not tinted, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And your back ones are, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Coincidence?
I don't think so. I think the killer got a car like mine.
That's his excuse to everything. Is the killer got down to, if in fact his theory is true, this is the best goddamn killer ever as far as attention to detail. And also insane as well for wearing blaze orange and a giant hat to a fucking crime scene. But he also talked about that in court too, of how, this all makes sense. I think he tried to get attention because he's a professional killer, because all professional killers wear blaze fucking orange and the exact same shoes that he wears and a giant fucking hat.
And it's found in his house.
And it's in his house.
Obscure, weird fucking outfit gets found in his house, chopped up to make it look like I was about ready to get rid of it. It'd be one thing if this stuff wasn't found. We thought we saw the killer. This is who we think it is. It's on video. We didn't find any evidence at your house. There's no evidence on you. For some reason, we're just pinpoint. That's different. Yeah. But this just looks like a case of Clue, and we know who did it.
You got all the cards in your hand, and you've narrowed it down, and you're right. He's like, no, you're not right. Let me go over to the deck here, and let me grab this one or move this piece over here. See, you're not right. That's because you just moved things on the deck. No, I didn't do that. I just saw you do that. No, I didn't. You were wearing blaze orange while you did it. No,
I wasn't.
I was not. You're still wearing the blaze orange, sir.
It wasn't me.
Tellis attempted to explain these discrepancies by reiterating his belief in a conspiracy. He argued that the images and evidence found in his phone were planted and that the entire narrative was constructed to frame him for the murder. However, Hamner presented him with these points, particularly focusing on the lack of evidence supporting his claims and the fact that no other suspects were identified.
You don't doubt that whoever that is killed Mr. Gehrman. That would be fair, right?
Yes.
Okay. you had mentioned one of the things that struck you was you watched the autopsy, or you saw the autopsy photos, and you were struck by the violence of it, correct?
No, sir.
No, you did not. Were you bothered by the photograph?
He wasn't struck by the violence in the photos, but he was bothered by them. How that makes any sense, I don't know.
I was.
Why is that?
Gruesome. I'm not used to seeing dead people.
Okay. I think you said it was ugly. Is that correct?
I may have.
All right. And you had told this jury that you felt like it looked like someone who knew what they were doing. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You believe this was a professional hit?
And that's what I believe.
Okay. So, and you believe this killer is kind of almost like someone hired to do this job, like an assassin, essentially, right?
That is what I believe, yes, sir.
All right. Now, I want to take a look at this picture for a second. The assassin seems to be wearing a giant sun hat. It's a pretty big hat, right?
Yes, sir.
It's fairly noticeable, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You think that might attract attention?
I would think so.
Okay, but this is a professional.
Right.
All right. And this professional is also wearing a bright orange shirt, correct?
Yes, sir.
Professional?
Yes, sir.
But wouldn't that attract attention?
I think that's part of the reason, actually. If I could elaborate.
No. You believe that professional assassins want to draw attention to themselves when they're carrying out murder. That's your testimony?
When they're framing someone, yes, sir.
So the answer to my question is yes. You believe professional assassins like to draw attention to themselves.
It depends on what the nature of their goal is, and if it's to frame someone, yes, sir.
So the answer to my question is yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
In his mind, it makes sense. And that's the thing you got to remember with these people. Through their prism, it all makes sense. It really does. Reality doesn't matter.
Tony, do you think if he took a lie detector test, and I'm not saying that those are reliable by any stretch, but he'd probably pass that he didn't think he did it? I mean, do you think somewhere in his brain he's thinking to himself, I didn't do this?
No, I don't. I think he knows he did it, but his goal is not that. His goal is just to convince people that he didn't do it. And if he can do that, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It negates everything. It's a weird way of thinking, but that's how they think. Narcissists, or narcissistic personality disorder, which I think he is. It's fucking bizarre. I mean, I think he's honestly more on like sociopathic type thinking. I don't think he's psychopath, but he's sociopathic. But it's all cluster B personality disorder, fucking antisocial everything. He's got a lot of the traits of it without a doubt. And then if you add a little bit of, possibly some Asperger's to the situation, that's what you get. So.
Going to be interesting. I really thought we'd have it wrapped up by now.
Where are we sitting right now? Because we're recording right now, Friday, almost 5 o'clock. I know this is airing Monday morning, unless you're a Premium Plus subscriber, by the way, which if you do that on Apple Podcasts, you can listen to our shows ad-free immediately after we record them. They do go right up, and you get extended interviews, you get all that stuff. With no ads whatsoever, and all of those are marked as advanced ad-free on Apple Podcasts. So, I
am looking at the trial right now. It finished a few minutes ago, and it doesn't say that it's gone to the jury or anything.
So we got more coming up yet. Wow.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yep. Yeah.
Well,
so we're not done.
This will be interesting to see where this wraps up. This next week. Another interesting note on a different case. We talked about that earlier, Karen Reed, and that's going to be going back to trial in January. There is still time, though, I think, on that for other appeals and things of that nature if they want to. You just never know where that could go. But it's going to be fascinating. We got a lot of interesting cases coming up here in the next couple of months. So,
yeah, we really do. There's no shortage.
It's going to be a busy fall. It was kind of a slow summer, with some of these, but there's some big ones on the way. So be sure to press subscribe so you don't miss any of that as we get back into the season of justice.
You're neck deep in a dark, twisted tale, and just as the tension peaks, bam, a commercial about some miracle diet pill breaks the spell. It's like finding a fly in your soup after the first bite. But here's the fix. True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. You get to enjoy your crime stories without the junk. Ad-free episodes, extended interviews that go beyond the surface, and early access to all the gruesome details. It's like swapping out a can of cheap beer for a glass of fine whiskey. So search for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe and keep the darkness flowing uninterrupted.